And welcome one and all to this podcast episode number 39. My name is Joshua Mickle, and welcome to this episode of Cast It to the King. I'm your host once again, Joshua Mickle, and we are back with some quick topics and reviews we're going to get into here shortly. I was going to start earlier, but there's a little bit of a technical delay on my end, so we're going to get right to it. And we're going to start here with this first topic, and that is the fact that right now we are living in a world where, first of all, just to set the table here, I have not used this platform to express my political views, who's right, who's wrong, in terms of like Republican, Democrat, Independent, whoever it may be. But what has happened last week with the conviction versus Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, cannot be understated as one that is shocking, and it almost leaves me dumbfounded in a way as to how did this happen? Like, how could it get to this point where we live now in the world, we live in a reality where you can you can throw a book at a particular political candidate and possibly send your political candidate to jail. On July 11th, there is a real possibility that Donald J. Trump, the former president of the United States, could be behind bars or under house arrest. Never, as a historian savant that I believe I am in terms of U.S. history with American politics and with American history, which I love reading up on when I was in school and out of school. And I aced my history classes of being the historian that I claim to be, that I believe I am, and calling balls and strikes with how I see things, of how they play out. But in terms of what's going on in New York versus Donald Trump, you cannot deny the following, which is, one, this case was brought on 2 months, like this case was announced by Alvin Bragg and Company, the AG of New York, 2 months after he was announcing that he was going to run for a second term in 2023. This case, a federal case, mind you, was not picked up by the feds, was not picked up by the state, by Alvin Bragg's whoever the AG was before him. And even Alvin Bragg years ago said there's nothing to it. Like, legal scholars have called this case of what they have brought to the courts with election fraud, etc., wherever they still don't say what the charges are, which is another red flag here, is that even he said that this is a skeleton, this is a zombie case, that there is nothing to stick this guy with, and yet they somehow found a way to stick him with 34 charges. When you look at the actual charges, it's just the same thing spun 34 different ways, and the maximum sentence could be ridiculously 128 years in prison for hush money. Now, you have to be living under a rock to know and realize that hush money payments is nothing new, especially in U.S. politics. There's nothing new with it. Let's not get into the area where Joe Biden has paid hush money to particular women. Let's not get into the fact that hush money was paid by both Clintons, Bill and Hillary. Let's not get into that Hillary Clinton mishandled classified FBI documents and was given a slap on the wrist. Right now, we are living in a society now where Donald Trump, the presumptive nominee for the Republican Party, is being faced with jail time, possibly. And never in our history have we convicted or charged, let alone charged, a former president of the United States. You'd have, famously in 2016, Trump leading the rallies against Hillary Clinton, lock her up, lock her up. But then when he gets elected, when he's president-elect, he's asked on the record, are you going to lock her up? And he said, no, we're not going to do that. We are going to bury the hatchet with this. We're going to move forward as a country, try to move forward as a country, and do the best, try to bring this country together in a unifying stance, because we do not want to set the precedent that if we are elected, we go after our political opponents and martyr them, crucify them, make them political prisoners. And that's what happens in places like Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, all the Middle Eastern countries, banana republics, Venezuela. You name the country, not dystopian banana republican country. That's the reality. That's their normal reality, where if someone gets elected, Russia is another example, where political opponents are locked up. And now we live in a society, we live in a reality where we are one step closer on July 11th, where the judge in New York can make that a possibility. And if we go down this road, again, I think we're already headed down this road. The Democrats no matter what side you fall on, the Democrats have opened Pandora's box with this. They have opened Pandora's box with going after a prominent figure of the opposite party. They have tried this in a court in district where Trump only got 7 total votes. So to say that he got convicted by a jury of his peers is simply not true. And they have said over the airwaves that if this was in Georgia, which elected Biden in the Electoral College, if this was in Virginia, which is purple leaning blue type of state, if this was North Carolina where it's purple, if this was in any other purple state out there, even Nevada is purple. It may lean red this upcoming November based on the polls. If you take this case to a purple state, all the pundits on the national media has said that there is a highly likely chance that this would not reach to a conviction and Trump will be acquitted with a not guilty verdict from the jury. So now let's explore the possibility real quick. What if he is convicted? Not convicted. What if he gets jail time or house arrest? What happens? We have seen in the last few days, last week, of record fundraising from President Trump's camp. And there has not been any spike in pollings for favoring Joe Biden, President Biden. That reaffirms that no one before the verdict was laid down that if you were staunch on voting for Trump, you were going to vote for Trump either way. If you're staunch for voting Biden and you don't like Trump, you're still more likely to vote for Biden no matter what happened in this case. Where the focus needs to lie, if you're watching this politically, are the never Trumpers, the rhinos of the Republican Party that can't stand Trump, almost have unilaterally come out and vehemently disagreed with the verdict and saying this is not right. This is not the way our country should be going down as a republic. And those guys are going to decide the election. Like those same voters that voted for Nikki Haley, now 98% of them are more likely going to vote for Trump than they would voting for RFK or Joe Biden. And you see with some of the polling where Trump has gained some of the black vote greatly at like 20+%. I imagine that percentage is going to go up a few points. And even if that's the case, where most of the majority of the black vote has gone to the Democrat Party, if that continues to slip away towards red, it's over for Joe Biden. It's over for the Democrats if they continue to go down this road. And I believe that if Trump is in jail or under house arrest, this is going to be one interesting cycle of what happens in New Jersey, what happens in Minnesota, even what happens in New York. Places that you think are red have been red for a long time. Places like Virginia, if those states are close electorally, especially in Virginia and New Jersey, where we saw in 2021, where Glenn Youngkin won the Republican governorship and the governorship overall in Virginia. We almost saw this no-name Jack guy from New Jersey almost take it away from the governor of New Jersey by a slim amount of points. If you just look at those two results, and if you want to apply those to the circumstances today between Trump's convictions and the unpopularity of Joe Biden, if those states are close or they flip red, it's over for the Democrats mathematically. Because if it's close there, what does that mean for Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and Nevada for the Democrats and Donald Trump? I mean, if you want, we can go down a rabbit hole with that, but the rabbit hole that we need to avoid as a country, and I'll close it with this, is that the rabbit hole we need to avoid as a country is that we cannot be a country where we are like other countries and throw away the key and lock up our political opponents that we may not like or hate with our entire guts. There are things I vehemently hate about Joe Biden. There are things I vehemently hate about Trump. I do not want to see our former presidents or our current presidents be convicted or thrown in jail, because that is a standard that we see banana republics do. It's not unifying, and it's not a road we want to go down on, because the moment one person does it, the moment one party does it, the other party is going to find a way to do it, and then you have this back and forth of, you did it first. Well, we're just doing what you're doing. You can't keep doing this. Well, you started it, sort of thing. We can't go down that road. We can't. And I hope and pray we don't come to. I hope and pray we don't come to that as a country. And with that out of the way, we are going to go into a fun topic here. Venom: The Last Dance has finally dropped its first trailer online, and it actually looks good. Now, this is coming off the heels of Mad Web. And if you see my review, me and my dad's review of Mad Web, it is a disgustingly awful movie. It is a awful movie, Mad Web. And the same movie producers are essentially starting up are essentially doing this year with Venom and all the other Sony Marvel movies. Movies related to Marvel. This trailer was actually really good. It was actually really good. The only thing I don't like was the opening dialogue between Venom and Eddie Brock. It just came across as corny. It came across as like cringe-worthy in a way where I'm like, what? No. Like, and it's one of the reasons why the first Venom movie was not received well with the critics, was because of the dialogue, the corniness of it. And there's a couple of things in this trailer where if you look back and watch it and then you pair it up with what has leaked supposedly of what the film plot is, it lines up. And if it is the case, this may be another doozy of a Madam Web or at best Morbius. And if that's the case, we are in for another interesting toilet plunge of a movie. But there is one scene I don't think is going to be in the movie. And I think they're going to cut it out. And I think they're going to cut it out similar to what a scene they cut out from Madam Web in the marketing, and a similar scene they cut out in Morbius, which was the connection to Spider-Man. In the Venom trailer, you see this little goo go up towards this finger, this bartender's finger, and then you see someone like trap it in a capsule, and it's Chiwetel Ejiofor's general character that we see we see him playing in this Venom verse. Now here's the problem with this scene. This looks like the same bar and same bartender we saw at the post-credits scene of Spider-Man No Way Home, where Venom was in the Marvel Cinematic Universe talking with his bartender about, hey, did you, like, there's this Iron Man guy, there's this weird green guy called the Hulk, and you thought Lethal Protector was a crap name. There's this guy with stone, there's this alien that collects stones. No, aliens don't collect stones, they want to eat brains. That kind of dialogue that you had Venom, Eddie Brock going back and forth with his bartender. That's supposedly the same bar scene. How is this Chiwetel Ejiofor's character in this same bar scene when already he has played Baramordo in the Doctor Strange movies? Now it could be revealed that this is actually in the MCU all along, where Venom just gets teleported to somewhere else differently in Mexico. And we see this general character played by Ejiofor pick up the symbiote, and then later on in the movie, like somewhere in the third act, you see Baramordo like do something something magic with his hands. And then that's a visual cue of like, this is no ordinary general. This is Baramordo, like in disguise as a general in this movie, going after Eddie Brock / Venom. Option number 2. This is in a different universe. It's similar to how he got there. He goes from one crappy hotel room to a fancy hotel room, same setting essentially, but different universe. There's a second scenario where at the No Way Home post-credit scene, he's transferred back to his universe, but at a similar bar, similar location, same looking guy, different variant. But then why would he leave another piece of symbiote behind? And again, if this is a retcon, I don't believe this scene's going to be in the movie. I think that this scene's going to be cut out, and this scene was just in there just to get fans talking on like, there's a connection to Spider-Man! Just like in Morbius, when you see a portrait of Spider-Man with graffiti as Morbius is walking through the alley, and you say, "Oh, there's a Spider-Man portrait that's connected. It's the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 2." Never in the movie. It was not in the movie. You have a moment in Madam Web where this is Peter Parker, and we must protect Peter Parker from this variant, like this Terminator type of Spider-Man that wants to kill the mother of Peter Parker to prevent Spider-Man from ever being born. That was cut out of the movie. That was cut out of the movie in favor of, I must defeat these Spider Women because they will destroy me. They will destroy me and destroy everything that I have built. In his ADR post-production crap voice takes. Now, at the end of the it seems like there's going to be an all-out symbiote war that is going to be hurling towards Earth. And we don't know the concepts of who's going to be allies, who's going to be enemies. Is the symbiote god Null going to show up? Is Chiwetel Ejiofor actually Baron Mordo? Are we going to see Toxin, who's the offspring of both Venom and Carnage, which we see the character teased in the trailer? He's in a cage. I've seen whispers online we're going to get Scream, which is a female yellow symbiote, which was actually shown in the recent Spider-Man PS5 Marvel Spider-Man 2 game, which was execution of that was done really well. The execution on that was done really well. We will see what happens with this movie. I showed the last scene in the trailer to one of my coworkers, and he's like, "I don't watch these movies." And then I show him the symbiote horse because Chris, if you're watching this episode, I'm coming after you for a minute. There's a moment in this trailer where the symbiote attaches to a horse, and we get a symbiote horse, essentially a symbiote monster Venom horse. Chris Steen, he has a thing for cowboys and horses apparently when doing graphic design, background design related stuff at the Life Church, and I have seen a pattern now. There is I don't want to say it's an obsession. There seems to be a appreciation per se for cowboys and horses with Chris. So I show him the Venom horse. He's like, "What the heck is that thing? That's interesting." And again, I believe him when he says he doesn't watch these movies. And hey, maybe that's the case. Maybe it's not the case. But overall, this is a good first trailer. We'll see what the follow-up trailer looks like. And we'll see if this is indeed the last dance for Tom Hardy and his portrayal of Venom. Moving on to the next topic, and we get our next one coming in the form of a documentary review. For those of you that know, MoviePass is apparently a craze. MoviePass used to be a big thing in the 2010s, in the decade of 2010. This the rise and fall of how it started up, and then these two guys named Mitch and Ted from Big Wall Street take over this company, essentially take over this company from the guy that Stacy Spikes is his name, that founded and came up with the idea of MoviePass. Essentially usurped him, kicked him out of the company. Think Steve Jobs, essentially, with Apple. How Apple was his thing. And Apple kicks him out. And then he comes back. This movie illustrates the rise, the fall, and the redemption of MoviePass. The redemption part coming at the tail end, last 10 minutes of the documentary. But most of it is how did it get from down here, you're way up here, stocks over $38, You could be a millionaire. You missed out on Netflix. Don't worry. Jump on the stock and you're going to be a millionaire. $10 a month for movies, unlimited, every single day. This documentary highlighted folks that I've seen. One guy saw the movie Crazy Rich Asians every single day in 1 week. And then he later on professed that he saw a total of over 400 movies. You have other folks saying that they have seen Avengers Infinity War multiple times. Or one of the Avengers movies. I want to say it was Age of Ultron. Even though they showed Infinity War B-roll in the documentary. Where he came back for 3 straight days to see that particular movie. And then when you look at the business model of how the original business model they described was for a set price, like 30 some odd dollars, you can watch movies unlimited, essentially. And for $30, back then, where ticket prices were averaging anywhere between $7 and $10, and you went to see 3-4 movies a month, you got your bang for your buck. Then Mitch and Ted, these Wall Street guys, come in and take the company, and they change it from 30 some odd dollars to $10 a month. Economically, not feasible. Because if you can watch a crap ton of movies with no limits on it, it's great for the consumer. It's great for the movie watcher. As a company, you are losing money. You are losing money because the moment someone watches a movie twice in 1 month, you're losing money. You're losing money. And then the incident where they bring up the FTC, how they would intentionally block users from accessing their accounts, locking them out of their accounts, changing their passwords, like the croniness of what happened with Mitch and Ted, of how they took this company and the things they did with it are really breathtaking. And then they eventually their stock crashed, their company cratered, they filed for bankruptcy, and then out of nowhere, it was up for auction, and no one was able to bid on it. No one wanted it, essentially. And then Stacy Spikes, the original founder, the original owner of this company, got it back. And in 2023, they reported for the first time in company history a profit. They made money in 2023. And I can tell you, as a MoviePass subscriber and a MoviePass card holder, their model now works. Their model works. It's on a credit system. You have advertisers involved. And there's a tier system with these credits. For me, I do the $10 a month for 32 or 30. I think it's $10 a month for 34 credits. You time out these credits because the credits ultimately have a big say on whether the movie's coming out in the first week. Like if you want a prime time date, it's going to cost you more credits. If you see it in the middle of the week or on a weekday, like in the middle of the afternoon, it's going to cost you less credits. If you time this out, like if you time your experiences out, you're getting more bang for your buck. Even despite that, we have and it rolls over 2 months. Not 2 months. A month's worth of credits rolls over into the next month. So you can have a maximum of 68 credits. Now, because of inflation and prices rising at the movie theaters with the tickets, one admission for me is worth the subscription by itself. Tickets now, I see when I'm checking out, and then I swipe my MoviePass card. One ticket alone for me averages $12 to $14. One ticket alone, I'm making money. 2 movies a month, I'm definitely in the clear. I am definitely in the clear. I might upgrade to $20 a month so I can see more movies. And 2 movies clears you financially. And so with the amount of movies ramping up, I just might upgrade to $20 a month. And so now, with what's going on, going forward, you have these tier systems with MoviePass where they can make money. And if you want more credits, you have to purchase them through their credit buying store. Think VC. Like, this is essentially VC. If you're a football or basketball video gamer, there's a thing called VC, virtual currency, where if you want points, you have an amount of points that you can get through gameplay, or you can purchase it with real money. That's essentially what these credits are. And MoviePass is just currency to buy these tickets. And it's working for them. And I'm glad that it's back online and back and successful, because in my area of Memphis, Tennessee, which is a top 50 market in the United States of America, there's no AMC, there's no Regal, and there's no Cinemark. All 3 of those locations have some sort of rewards program or subscription program with AMC A-List with AMC, and then you have Regal Unlimited with Regal. They have some sort of subscription there. Malco, which owns the majority, if not all, the theaters here, do not have that. They should, but they don't. They should, but they don't. And so, yeah, if you have a chance, go catch this documentary. It's on HBO Max. I think this may be on YouTube TV if you have it, because this was watchable through through a local HBO channel. So if you have YouTube TV, I believe you can be able to watch it still. I may be wrong, but be sure to catch this if you can. And I see my dad's in the chat there. No more of these bad Marvel movies. Well, we'll find out. We'll find out what happens with Venom. Next review comes in the form of Furiosa, and I loved Mad Max Fury Road when it came out in either 2014 or 2015, where it came out. Loved it. Takes you on this dystopian wasteland of a post-apocalyptic world. And I will tell you the truth, I have never seen any of the original Mad Max movies with Mel Gibson. I have not. So I went into Fury Road knowing nothing about these movies. And I loved it. Furiosa is a great prequel to a really awesome character in Furiosa in Mad Max Fury Road. Chris Hemsworth's performance in this was really good. He was actually the surprise performance of this movie, if I'm to be honest with you. He did great with what was written, and the dialogue was great. The script was really good. The directing was really good. The photography, the videography, the set design, the sound, the score by Junkie XL, really good. Chris Hemsworth's performance, I think it was just announced that he is set to star in the Transformers G.I. Joe crossover movie that Paramount is doing over there with Transformers and G.I. Joe, and that he's set to star in that live action movie. Coincidentally, coming out with that news after his role in Furiosa, I don't think it's a coincidence, because he did a really good performance in that, in Furiosa. Anya Taylor-Joy, who is rumored to be Silver Surfer, is not in the new Fantastic Four movie. It's a different female actress playing a variant of Silver Surfer. Anya Taylor-Joy in this movie was once again showing why she's one of the best actresses in Hollywood today. Once again showing that. And to make a long story short, this Furiosa movie, I can't recommend more than enough. And I forgot to put the graphic on here. I want to see if I can bring it up here at the last second. Can I? Or is it under downloads? I do not, unfortunately. I'll have to do it next time. But I will have the graphic ready for the next movie review I do for the next episode. The movie review box, and I have to bring it up on Facebook. And I apologize about this, and this is the beauty of going live. All right, my photos. I have a movie. Thanks to my father and his obsession with popcorn, he has a movie rating system. You know what? I can actually bring it in. I'm going to try to bring it in right now. Here we are, and bam. And now I'm going to attach that to live full. Here, a rating system right here of Don't Bother, which is Madam Web. Nice small popcorn, like say Kung Fu Panda 4. Really nice medium-sized popcorn rating, which I would say is Transformers: Rise of the Beast. And then you have break out the large with extra butter rating for popcorn, which I would put Dune under. I would put Spider-Man No Way Home in this category. I would put Furiosa in this category. Furiosa gets the top rating of this rating system that is now officially dished out on here. The first ever rating system for Furiosa, the first ever rating system on Casted to the King, gets the rating of break out the large size popcorn with extra butter. With extra butter indeed. So we will leave it at that. And now for the next topic and review. X-Men 97. A return to the 90s. And I will start out by saying I am the Spider-Man 90s guy. I never grew up with the X-Men 90s cartoon show. And funny enough, Spider-Man was the show that these 90s shows with Fantastic Four, Iron Man, Captain America, X-Men, they will cross over into the Spider-Man episodes. Most famously, in the Secret Wars arc, in the final season of Spider-Man, the animated series, in the mid-90s. X-Men 97, a return. Finally, Marvel Studios having their hands on their top IP that they have been missing, that they've missed since the beginnings of their studio when they couldn't even touch these rights with Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, and X-Men, primarily those top three. When those movies were being made in the early 2000s, and Marvel Studios was trying to start up their company and trying to start up their universe, they could not touch their top IP with X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Spider-Man. Iron Man, Captain, like the Avengers characters on their own and even as a collective at the time were B-level characters at best. Or consensually, they were C-level characters. And we saw when they got their hands with Spider-Man, with the trilogy of films that they've had now with Spider-Man, and implementing him in the Avengers films and in the Captain America Civil War movie, we have seen Marvel do such a great job with their top IP, with their top properties, with their top tier characters. And I believe they're going to do the same thing when they put out their first ever Fantastic Four movie in a few years. And now we get our first crack of what can they do with X-Men. They have been teased in Miss Marvel. We saw Namor and Black Panther as a mutant teased in this universe. We are about to see Deadpool enter this universe, and Marvel having a crack of making a mutant X-Men related movie with Deadpool. What can they do with X-Men proper? They decided to go back into the 90s and resurrect the series and continue the series. The original writer and showrunner for this series, I believe his first name was Bo DeMayo, was ousted, let go, fired, whatever you want to use the terminology. He was let go with less than a week before the series was supposed to launch. And the famous theory out there was that he had an OnlyFans page that Marvel/Disney did not want to be in association with. That's the top going theory or rumor of why he was kicked out, because he had some explicit photos of him publicly online. That's the going theory. That's the going rumor. We don't know what's true. Neither have spoken on the fact. Even in post episodes, and now the season being over, with Bo being out there on X posting updates and cues about the show, even he hasn't brought it up. He hasn't said why he's not there. They're going to continue season 2 without him, but they're going to use the script that he wrote, and they're going to do touch up on the scripts, but they said they're going to honor the script that they wrote and the continuation of the season that they just finished up with X-Men 97 Season 1. Season 1 has some of the best writing, best character development, and some of the drastic... I cannot tell you how many story arcs are in this show that they somehow loop into single episodes. You have the fall of Genosha. You have the vibranium being ripped out of Wolverine's body that Magneto does. You have Xavier erasing Magneto's mind, essentially, arc. You have the Goblin Queen arc. You have the Sinister arc. You have the Sentinel arc. All of that wrapped in one season. All those wrapped in single episodes. How they managed to do that without it feeling crammed and congested, I have to give props to. They did a great job. Like the Marvel Studios and Bo DeMayo did a great job with the flow of the story. And even someone like me who has not seen the old episodes, and I have actually gone back and watched some of the older episodes to try to pinpoint, that's why it was referenced in this new show. That's where Sinister came from. That's what happened with Professor Charles Xavier. That's what happened with him. That's what happened with Magneto, and the connections of why he is at the start of the season. I mean, they did such a great job. And the only thing that's frustrating about this show is it ends on a cliffhanger. Oh my Lord. You do not end on cliffhangers with me. I can't stand it. I cannot stand cliffhangers. Infinity War ended on such a cliffhanger. It was originally supposed to be called Infinity War Part 1 and 2. They retitled it and said, oh no, it's not Part 1 and 2. It's not going to end on we're waiting for Part 2. Oh yes, we are waiting for Part 2. You just renamed it Endgame. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was dubbed Part 1 and Part 2. They took the Part 1 and Part 2 out and dubbed the third one Beyond the Spider-Verse. Across the Spider-Verse ends like a Part 1. And it's frustrating where it's like, it's such a great thing that you have, and now I'm just waiting as a fan. I'm like, how long do I have to wait for the next part to come out. How long do I have to wait? This is like, and they tease what's about to come. They tease what's about to come in the next season, and they set it up greatly. And one of the tragic deaths that happens in the middle of the season may be coming back as a villain. One of the tragic deaths from one of our heroes may be coming back as a villain in this arc. And when you see the show, you will know what I'm talking about. I mean, and to clear this one thing up out of the way, the character Morph that was, and you see, and I can point them out to you right there, fellow Whitehead to the far left of the group of the X-Men right there. His name's Morph. Powers, he can transform to anybody and have their same skill set. So for some reason, unlike Mystique, where she can just transform in physical looks alone, she can't have their abilities, but you can transform, in Morph's case, not only in appearance, but have their skills and strengths and weaknesses, etc. as well. The controversy going into this show was that it was announced on social media that he is a non-binary character and he uses they, them pronouns. To which I was like, if they do political messaging with this character in the show, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. They don't. Let's just get that out of the way. They don't. And for those that say, they totally show that he's a gay, like, non-binary character. He loves Wolverine. And there's a particular scene where he professes his love for Logan at the end of the show. And when you look at it in context of what's going on, at least from my point of view, it does not look like he's saying, "Oh, I love you, Logan." No, he transforms into Jean Grey, who Logan loves, and he's saying to Logan, "I love you." Without giving away spoilers, Logan is on a medical bed severely injured from the adamantium being ripped out of him. And Jean's Jean's not on the ship with him. And he's struggling to get her name out. And he's like, "Jean." And Morph says, line for line, "She can't say it, but I can." Transforms into Jean Grey. And then he says, "I love you, Logan. Stay with me." That was a communication to me that he is saying that he's saying that for her, because she is not there right now, because there's something else going on that is heavy spoilery that I cannot say without spoiling the show. And there is one thing, I want to say it's either in episode 2 or 3. I want to say it's in the 3rd episode, where Sinister is tricking Morph as Wolverine. And let's get out of the way. Morph and Wolverine are best friends in the original show in the 90s, and they're still best friends in this show. There is this weird scene that some have told me online that this implicates that he is romantically in love with Logan. He's romantically in love with Logan with that line of dialogue. The line of dialogue was weird, but it still didn't come across to me like, that's like in my face. He's non-binary. He's a they, them. No, I didn't get that at all. I got it. It came across as a joke. It didn't come across as a sexual joke. It didn't come across as a homophobia joke. What's the term? It didn't come across as a gay joke. It didn't come across as an LGBTQ, plus, etc., sign. It didn't come across as that for me. It didn't. And then there's I want to say it was, it's somewhere at the end of the 2nd episode, where he brings out some food and beer to a grieving Wolverine in the trees, throws the food at him, holds the beers, and Wolverine's not in, like, he's like, I'm not in the mood right now. And then he transforms into Sabretooth. And then they do like a fun like wrestle off camera. Like Sabretooth morph in this case, transforms into Sabretooth, and then Wolverine just smiles, whips out the claws, and then they jump away off screen. And that's it. And that's another implication that someone tells me, oh, the beer cans, and this means it's a messaging that he, like, they're going to have sex and whatnot. I'm like, no. And what? Unless I am so out of touch with society and what terminology is for sex, I do not, like, that does not mean anything to, like, that should not mean anything to me. It didn't come across as mean anything to me of like, oh, he went to get beer and whatnot, and it means that he's having sex off screen. No, just God, no. Some of these folks out there on the social, some of these folks out there that want to be rainbow flag woke warriors out there, in the name of wokeisms, in the name of LGBTQ, trans rights, etc., just want to have their time in the sun as, oh, representation. It's, I mean, hey, if he's non-binary, I didn't have an issue with the character of Morph. He was one of the comedic parts of the show. I thought he was one of the best parts of the show. But the way they portrayed him, in my opinion, as a Christian man, did not come across as rubbing it in my face that he's homophobe. I mean, that he's gay. Like, all that in my face of him being this and that with sex terminology. I did not get that at all. And no, Dad, we are not starting a petition for Green Lantern 2. We will not start that right now. I should block you for doing that. But no, I am not that kind of person that blocks people. Unless you're giving me death threats. Yeah. Long story short, Morph was not an issue. This show was not an issue. The show is great. It's on Disney+. If you can purchase it on Amazon Prime, do it. If you can watch it on Disney+, do it. I highly recommend it. Now, for the last topic of the day. And it's in the thumbnail. And I feel like we keep going on this roller coaster. We keep going on this roller coaster again and again and again and again and again with these folks in the national media and online pundits that claim to be football experts. Here we go again with multiple instances. And I'm just going to start off with, once again, our friends over at I call them friends because we're in the online community talking football, talking sports and whatnot. With Mike Florio with NFL on NBC. He has a guest on not named Chris Sims, which the last time we were talking about Chris Sims, he made some uninformative takes about the Titans of why we were projected to take a tackle in the NFL draft. Joe Old did not happen, actually. We actually ended up taking another guy in J.C. Latham in that position. Made a dumb take, Chris Sims did. This lady, this old hack, I don't know her name. But I tell you what, like, I'm going to switch now, and we're going to dive deep into this ridiculous Titans take.
All right, pop-up draft time on this topic. League-wide, quarterbacks with the most tenuous grip on their starting jobs entering the season. We know we've got several months before the season starts, but let's fast forward. We get to week 1. Who is in the most precarious position? Shireen, you get the first selection.
I'm going to go with Will Levis. You know, the Titans have had a good offseason.
Even Mark
but
Florio.
Still comes down to
Even Mark Florio here is shocked. And he has not been the staunchest of defenders for the Titans, nor the staunchest defender of Will Levis. But he is on the record, even with Chris Sims, saying, hey, he's a really good quarterback, and he has a great supporting cast around him now with DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, now Tyler Boyd as a slot guy, Traylon Burks, who can be a great he's the fourth wide receiver on our depth chart. That's a luxury, especially if he can give you anything. Plus, Nick Westbrook-Akine, who is a natural number 5 wide receiver. And we have Kyle Phillips as number 6, if you want to round that up as your top 6 wide receivers. And that's not even talking about Jackson, who we just drafted in the draft this past month or so ago. But I'm sorry, let's get back to her.
You know, the Titans have had a good offseason, but it still comes down to the quarterback. They had several injuries. He had several injuries last season, couldn't stay on the field, right foot, quad injury, high ankle sprain. Same thing we were talking about Anthony Richardson, figuring out how to protect yourself.
Let's stop it right there. Protecting yourself. The same way we talk about Anthony Richardson. Now, let's put into context with Anthony Richardson versus Will Levis here. Anthony Richardson had a really good few games. Okay, we'll give him that. We will give him that. He had a very good few games. Very good few games here. Very good few games. That's all I'll say. And then, leading up to his injury, which coincidentally is against the Titans and Harold Landry, that knocked him out for the rest of the season. Yeah, I can go down through the list of star players that have played us and they get injured against us and they're never the same again. Sean Merriman, Phillip Rivers, and LT being one of them. They happen to be on the same San Diego Chargers team. So that's neither here or there. So she says the same way we talk about Anthony Richardson's injury issues, the way we should be with Will Levis. Now let's compare it with Anthony Richardson. Displayed great talent as a dual threat quarterback in a few games. What was the knock during those few games? He needs to protect his body. He can't be taking large hits with the way he runs the football and the spread option offense that's akin to what their head coach brought over from Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts. You cannot do that constantly and be quarterback heavy with Anthony Richardson because he's eventually going to get injured. And how did Anthony Richardson get injured? On a play like that where he is left with no protection, I don't want to be factually wrong here. Either way, all I remember is that he was out in the open and he got whacked by Harold Landry and thus ushered the Gardner Minshew era of Indianapolis. Will Levis's injuries. He comes in midway through the season. Will Levis comes in midway through the season. Starts 8+ games for you. 8+ games for you. Am I doing that math right? We started out 2-4. Like that odd number. Yeah, we started out 2. I'm forgetting. Yeah, 2-4. We started out 2-4 bye week, and then you had the Falcons game that he started in, where he had a blast of a game. He only misses. He missed the Seahawks game, and he missed the Jacksonville last game of the season. That's 2 games out of, I want to say roughly 8. Let's do the math. 6 games. There's 17 games in the season. My math, man. This is why I sucked in algebra in college right now. You know what? I'm just going to do this right now. Live, Titans, 2023, schedule. All right, here we are. List of games. He was fully healthy and started. He was healthy and started. He started against the following: the Falcons, the Steelers, the Buccaneers, the Jaguars, the Panthers, the Colts, the Dolphins, the Texans. Got injured in overtime. Misses 1 game. Starts the Texan game. Gets injured in the first play of the second quarter. And then misses the Jacksonville Jaguar game. That's 9-2. Started in 9 games. Misses 2 full games because he can't start because of an injury. And misses most of that 9th game because he got injured. Now, back to the whole thing here. How did he get injured? He did not get injured for running an option play. He did not get injured diving for the first down. He did not mess or tweak with any muscles throughout all the season because of plays that you would want your quarterback to slide. Yes, you would rather him slide, but based on what he gave us last year, he can handle the hits. He can handle the hits. Where did the injuries come from? Being broken, being bent backwards in overtime against the Houston Texans like a pretzel behind the offensive line, standing still. He was not running out of the pocket. And this old hack right here to the right is saying that, he was reckless, essentially. Will Levis needs to protect himself. He couldn't protect himself behind this putrid of an offensive line. 23. In 2023, he could not. And it finally broke on him to where he was tackled awkwardly backwards. And when it happened, I feared the worst. I thought he legitimatly broke his back when you watch the play. When you watch the play, I thought when Ryan Stonehouse got injured versus the Colts, and our special teams coach got fired for it, rightfully so. When he got fired for it, rightfully so. Now, when those injuries happened to his leg, he had multiple fractures, and he had to get surgery the next day. And there's still rumblings that he probably won't be available for us for the start of the year this year. Our all-pro punter is probably not going to be able to start for us for the start of the season. We will see what happens. But when that Will Levis first injury happened in December versus the Houston Texans in overtime, standing behind that offensive line, being the pocket quarterback passer that we all want him to be. Bent backwards like a pretzel. Bent backwards. And when it happened, I was like, you know what? We are cursed. We are officially cursed. Our star players, not only do we have injury issues, we are now getting injured with our star players, our key players. And it's ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And when it happened, I'm like, and he was on the ground for a long while. I'm like, they're going to have to bring out the stretcher. They're going to have to cart him off. They're going to have to do all that. You got to be kidding me. No. But no, he hopped off. He was helped off. And he essentially suffered the Ryan Tannehill sprained ankle injury, which I am on the record for, and it should be noted when you look this up with a simple Google search with a high ankle sprain recovery time, it is anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks recovery time. He's back 2 weeks later. Early. He's back one game. He's back after missing one game. Just like Tannehill came back early from an ankle sprain injury and didn't perform well for us. Did not perform well for us. The same thing can be argued for Trevor Lawrence and why he was abysmal down the stretch for the Jacksonville Jaguars. After he suffered a similar high ankle sprain, he came back early and he was playing on a hobbled ankle that he should have been resting. But didn't because you're 8-3 at the time and you're trying to vie for playoff competency, essentially. You're trying to vie for a playoff spot in the division. But no, I believe that's the injury that derailed the Jacksonville Jaguars, in my opinion, is that injury to Trevor Lawrence. That same injury happens to Will Levis. Now, the second injury happens with the foot, with one of his feet. What happens? He's standing like a statue in the pocket, looking downfield, and he gets tackled, bam, from the right side of the line. Oh, by the way, how many offensive linemen do you have? Off the top of your head, if you don't know, just think. How many offensive linemen do you normally have? Not counting tight ends. You have 5. You have the left tackle, you have the left guard, you have the center, you have the right guard, and you have the right tackle. 5. In this instance, He had an extra lineman. He had a 6 on his right side. He had an extra lineman on his right side, and they still couldn't protect him. They still couldn't protect him. With 6 linemen, they still couldn't protect him, and still got through, and he suffers the foot injury. This lady, let's get back to her and let her finish because I cut her off because I'm sorry for that. So yeah, let's get back to her.
And stay on the field. He went on the field, right foot, quad injury, high ankle sprain. Same thing we were talking about Anthony Richardson, figuring out how to protect yourself and stay on the field. He went 3-6 as a starter. He has to learn a new system, all those things.
Every quarterback has to learn a new system when they get a new head coach. Shocker.
Mason Rudolph looks serviceable. I mean, I think we know
Mason Rudolph was a backup quarterback.
What Mason Rudolph.
This next take with Mason Rudolph. I want to rip my hair out that I just grew back.
All those things. Mason Rudolph looks serviceable. I mean, I think we know what Mason Rudolph is, and there's a reason that the Steelers didn't re-sign him. I get all that.
What was the reason? He's not a good quarterback. He's not a good quarterback. That's the reason they didn't re-sign him. They had him for all those years. They could have signed him to be the backup quarterback to Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. They did not. Let's get
Mason Rudolph is, and there's a reason that the Steelers didn't re-sign him. I get all that. But he played as good as he has played in his career last year. He went 3-0.
He went 3-0, and he played well last year. What's the definition of playing well? With one of the worst offenses in the NFL in the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they're now getting Arthur Smith, which if you watch him in Atlanta, I feel sorry for you Pittsburgh fans. No, I don't, because you're Steeler fans, and I hate you Yinzers out there, football-wise. But Mason Rudolph, if he's so good, why was he so horrible versus the Bills in the playoffs? He could have been respectable. Ryan Tannehill was respectable versus the Chiefs in the playoffs. He was respectable versus the Patriots and Ravens. He could have been respectable. I mean, where's the stat? If you like, and I'm going to criticize her for doing this, and she's doing this, but this is not me being a box office. I mean, not box office. That's movies. This is not me being a box score warrior right here. This is not being a box score warrior right here. You do the eye test with Mason Rudolph and that Steelers offense. It was putrid and garbage. Just slightly under our competence as a Titans offense. Just slightly. Because my dad will argue with me till the cows come home. The only reason the Steelers keep making the playoffs is because their defense. They have never had a high-powered offense, and whenever they do, their defense lacklusters. For some reason, in the Mike Tomlin era, after he lost the Super Bowl to the Green Bay Packers, ever since that happened, his teams have been Mike Vrabel-esque in being mediocre, can't make the playoffs, being 500 every single year. No, this is Mike Vrabel and Jeff Fisher-esque from Mike Tomlin. And yeah, if he did not have the Super Bowl, he wouldn't have never lasted long in Pittsburgh. I mean, for all I know, he probably would still be there if he didn't have that one Super Bowl versus the Arizona Cardinals. Because it's the Steeler way with the Rooney family. You don't fire a head coach. You let their contract conveniently expire, or they retire. They've only had a total of less than 5 coaches in their entire life cycle as an organization with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Some would say, that's great for trusting in your head coach. That's so great in trusting your head coach. And giving him, you're not going to pull the plug on him. You trust your head coach. You just trust him, and you're not going to pull the rug out from underneath him. But what he has done in Pittsburgh is Vrabel and Fisher-esque. And especially with the offense since Big Ben left. It has been putrid and pathetic. And Mason Rudolph's stats and his execution of the offense was no better with Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett, small hand Pickett, at quarterback for that offense. No different. And it goes in line with what we heard from Nick Wright from first things first, saying that this is going to be the worst team in football. It's going to be one of the worst teams in football. They're going to have the first overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft, which when you look at this roster, that's going to be impossible. That's going to be impossible. Everyone would have to have severe cases of the flu every single game and miss these games in order for us to get the first overall pick. That's how talented our team is. That's how talented our team is. And so when you look at that, from that point of view, it baffles me. This sort of thing baffles me with how many of these takes that we hear from professional pundits that seem to be dumb, arrogant, or stupid in these takes. At least do your research. Like, you can say objectively, I mean, hey, we saw a little bit from Will Levis. We saw some flashes from him. But I don't think he's going to be the guy going forward. Okay, that's a respectable opinion to have. That's a respectable opinion to have. What is not respectable opinion to have is for you to go out there and say, oh, he did horrible. He's injury prone. When both of those instances is false and full of lies. False and full of lies for you. And with that being said, the last thing I will touch up on with, and again, from Nick Wright and then also Chris Sims with his take, and now this lady with her take, there is another take that lit it up today. And I'm going to read it with you. Yeah, I'm going to read this along with you. And I'm going to pull up on the screen for all of us to read respectively. So, you know what? I don't think I can do that. Where's my mouse? Here we are. All right. From Sports Illustrated, all Titans. By the way, this is not a like, he's written all sorts of Titans blogs and whatnot, like Titans takes and whatnot. And actually, when you look at some of the stuff, it's actually not it's pretty mixed. Pretty mixed when he's covering the time. He just joined Sports Illustrated in May 13th of 2024. And then he has this sort of article that says the following. Could the Tennessee Titans sign Dak Prescott next year? The Titans don't have a solidified quarterback plan, which is false, but maybe next offseason could bring one along. Titans are rolling with Will Levis this season, but if he continues to perform poorly, he may be on his way out. That right there, that first line right there, is flat out false. He did not perform poorly. He did not perform poorly at all last year. Quite the opposite with what he was dealing with from a play calling coaching perspective, from what he had with a wide receiver core, which was horrible, and what he had with an offensive line, which was atrocious last year. Poor play. This is another definition of, oh yeah, I forgot to mention it with her. She probably looked at Will Levis' stats and his injuries on the box score and just made the assumption of, oh, he's this and that. Oh, he must have injury issues. This is a case where this guy, Jeremy Brenner, probably just looked at the stats, didn't bother watching any time. He probably never seen a Titans game. I'm probably going to hedge that bet. He has never seen one Titans game last year. Not one. And if he did, it's probably the one with Will Levis in the Atlanta Falcons game of 4 touchdowns. And then it's like, oh, why didn't he do 4 touchdowns the rest of the way? What happened? Like, what happened? And so when you look at it from that point of view, I mean, there's absolutely no way this guy has seen a Titans game at all. I mean, we go for right here. Another player who could be in the another player who could be the Titans quarterback is in the final year of his team, Dak Prescott, who is in the last season of his contract with the Dallas Cowboys. As of now, Prescott doesn't have an extension lined up, which could spell the end of his tenure for Dallas, which could very well be true because in his contract, he has, and I think every player should be doing this. I'm surprised I'm surprised a lot of players are not doing this. He has in his contract a no franchise tag clause. You cannot franchise him. Dak Prescott put that in his contract smartly. Why other players are not doing that? Why other quarterbacks are not doing this? Why Drew Brees didn't do this in New Orleans when they were franchising him up the wazoo is beyond me. Why Kirk Cousins didn't do this earlier in Washington is beyond me. It continues. As of now, Dak Prescott doesn't have an extension lineup, which could spell the end of his tenure with the Cowboys. While the Cowboys have been criticized for waiting to get a deal done, Prescott has shown patience, which is true. It worked for the signal caller in 2021 when he signed a full-year, $160 million deal, and it could work again. Getting something done before the season starts would be preferable for the Cowboys, which again is also true, but the final deadline is early March, ESPN writes, which he's quoting here, and I'm just going to double check here. ESPN Plus article. Of course, I can't see it. Behind paywalls, of course. Again with YouTube. Am I doing well? Yeah, I'm doing well. All right, back to the article. Without a new deal before the 2025 league year, Prescott will count $40.5 million against the cap and likely be headed to a new team following the path Kirk Cousins went through this offseason. If Prescott is a free agent and Levis' struggles continue, which he has not struggled, the Titans could become a landing spot for the Cowboys quarterback. The Titans are one of the soundest teams financially in the NFL, and they have a desire to want to compete sooner rather than later, which if you have been following all of our moves this offseason, shows you that we are not just phoning it in this season. We are trying our best to win games to get in the playoffs this year. The Titans are one of the soundest teams financially in the NFL, and they have desire to want to compete sooner rather than later. Adding Prescott instead of playing it out with Levis or drafting a rookie would certainly fast-track the team's path to the playoffs, and the Titans should at least look at the possibility if the Cowboys are ready to move on. Again, that article by Jeremy Brenner over, Jeremy Brenner over at Sports Illustrated. And I'll go ahead and pull this over here now for folks to see. This article is the definition of stupidity. This article is the definition of malpractice. This article is the definition of what the heck are you talking about? You have clearly not seen any of our games of why we lost, how we've lost, how we've won, especially with Will Levis starting at quarterback, of how we've lost those games. Will Levis did not account for any of these losses solely because of Will Levis. He has losses on the record. Yes, he is 3-6 as a starter. He is 3-6 as a starter. But none of those losses were a result of him in poor play. None of them were results of him in poor play. None of them, zero, zilch, nada. None of them whatsoever were results of poor play by Will Levis. None of them. And we can go to the barn house, we can go to Vegas, do whatever phrase you want to use. Take you out back. Like, take you outside, whatever the phrase was on Dr. Phil. Take you to the woodshed. Like the woodshed. The wood chipper. Whatever phrase you want to use. Whatever phrase you want to use. Will Levis was not the issue the Titans lost. The Titans were losing because of bad O-line play, bad with penalties, a defense that kept bending and bending and bending, and then they broke when they couldn't bend anymore. They lost because of coaching, game management from coaching, and especially that game versus Miami where with 3 minutes left, you're down 2 touchdowns. Even in that game where Vrabel had to throw his hands up in the air and say, we give up. We can't do anymore. We cannot go on with this, with what we're doing. Will Levis, let's see what you can do. Take us home, Will Levis. Let's see if you can take us home, Will Levis, quarterback from Kentucky. And he did. What happens when you give him the keys? What happens when we've seen him given the keys to the kingdom? What happens with your offense when he is given full reign of your offense? We saw that in the Atlanta game, and we saw that in the Miami game, where in the last 3 minutes of the Miami game and the full game versus the Falcons. Give them full autonomy of the offense. And what happens? Great things happen. Great things, and we pass the ball efficiently, and I can't wait to do that even more in a pass-proficient, pass-first offense in Brian Callahan and what he's bringing to the table. And now that we have a better O-line and a better wide receiving core that is not known for dropping balls. I mean, again, someone needs to point to me where, like, the hatred for the Titans were there. And we were just talking earlier about to the beginning of the show with Donald Trump and the hate that the Democrats have for him. I swear to you, this hatred for the Tennessee Titans is what the national media hatred was for. Is like it's on the same level of what the national media did for the first few years when Trump was in office. They couldn't stand the man. They kept pumping out fake stories of Russia collusion, Russia this, Russia that with Donald Trump. Did not turn out to be true. And now we're seeing with the Titans, since Vrabel's firing, of stories coming out. DeAndre Hopkins wants a trade. Not true at all. Will Levis struggled in 2023. Not true. Titans are looking for a new quarterback in 25. Not true. Titans have a bottom-feeding, bottom-5 team in the NFL. Based on the roster we have with our skill players and our positions, we do not have a bottom-5 team. Tell that to the Raiders. Tell that to the We'll see what happens with Bo Nix in their quarterback situation. They're one back, like they're a starting quarterback that's bad for the Broncos, and they're a bottom-5 team. Just like they were last year, arguably. But then they got hot, and then they're out of position in the draft, and they draft the last best of the 6 quarterbacks in Bo Nix in the first round. So, to draw this whole thing to a conclusion with the national media and the Tennessee Titans, do not try to be a box office warrior. Don't be a box score warrior where you're just looking at the stats and you've never seen a Titans game. Be honest about it. Please, for the love of God, be honest with your takes and say, hey, I've only seen a few moments with him, and this is what I saw, and this is what I think. Now we have to be under the assumption of if you're making these takes, we have now as Titan fans, we have to do double takes. Now, if you now with the Titans, we have to do double takes now. Where if you say something about the Titans and you're not in our building, you're not like in our core per se, like in our bubble sphere, like with the Teron Davenports, the Paul Kowarskis of the world, if you are not in that same sphere and you do a take, we have to do a double take with you in terms of what's your track record with the Titans? What have you written about the Titans? Do you have a negative vibe or a positive vibe? You can have a positive vibe with the Titans and not be glowing about them. For me, I would argue my positive vibe with the Titans the last 2 years was that we have a good running. Like here's the definition of a positive vibe, in my opinion. I've said the last 2 years we are not a playoff team, but we are competitive enough that we are close in games, but we just for some reason can't get over that hump. Constructive criticism is another word for it. You can have constructive criticism and still say and be honest that the Tennessee Titans may not be good. They may be good. But if you're someone out there, you could say, I don't think the Titans are good. I think they may finish 4th or 3rd in the AFC South for X, Y, and Z. And those X, Y, and Z explanations are valid. I had the Jacksonville Jaguar fan on a while ago for one of my episodes. And I posed to him, you take away Will Levis and you don't put in there Peyton Manning, you don't put in there Tom Brady, you don't put in there Drew Brees because those are cheat codes essentially. That's a cheat answer. That's an opt-out answer. Not even Aaron Rodgers. Don't even use him in this argument. Put a quarterback in his prime, Phillip Rivers, from the late 2000s onto this 2024 Titans squad. What is this team's expectations, and what is this team going to do in the regular season? And he said to me, as a Jaguar fan, being objective, he said this team's a 12-win team. He said this at minimum 10 wins. This team's in the playoffs. This team's going to win a playoff game. This team is going to win a playoff game. And that alone should show you that the national media may have they may have questions or concerns with Will Levis. Okay, that's okay for you to have, because a lot of Titans fans were very pessimistic about Malik Willis and the play that he gave in 2022. And when I would argue he should be the quarterback for 2023 before we drafted Will Levis and ditched Ryan Tannehill and get $18 million in cap space, I would get shellacked for it. But I will understand some of their criticisms of he's very limited and he hasn't shown much on the field, which is factually correct. Factually correct. And I would say, I agree with you, but give him a full season and a play calling type of offense that suits his skills, that doesn't limit his skills, and see what you got. You can still be right, but what have we got to lose? We're not a playoff team. We're just not. And for those that thought we were, we're just we're just delusional. We're just delusional. And I remember Firestone saying this when I was on the last Titans Coliseum podcast with him. He said that, like, Firestone, admittedly being a Vrabel defender all these years, like, even he says, like, look, I didn't know, but I was rooting in 2022 and 2023 thinking we were a playoff team when we were not. And yeah, it's one of those double takes where it's like, okay, the blindness that I have, like the blind loyalty I would have to a team, my team that I love, I don't want to root against. And I don't like criticism being thrown out there. Whereas you have the other angle of it of, you love your team so much, but if you don't call out those criticisms and you keep repeating mistakes, nothing's going to get changed. The same thing's going to happen. That's what happened during 22, going into 2023, when we still rolled with Vrabel and company, when he hired another in-staff hire with Tim Kelly. I said the same thing was going to happen. The same thing did happen. And now we have made the changes, and now we are going into the season with Will Levis as our number one QB1 starting quarterback. And from that point, it should not be a thing of Will Levis did horrible. It should be a thing of Will Levis, with what he was given, with what he played with, did not, like, for those that may have criticisms, the critique should be from someone else's point of view. I could see it being constructive criticism of, he played in 9 games. He was injured for that 9th one, essentially, and didn't play that whole game for that 9th one. He missed 2 games because of injury. He played, his play from what he had to deal with behind a horrible offensive line and a subpar to bad wide receiving core. Okay, that's all I have to judge off of him. I may think he may have struggled, but you got to look at the context around him. You got to look at the play calling tendencies with Mike Vrabel and his offensive philosophy. And it's been shown for what Will Levis and the rest of the offense have been saying this offseason of, yeah, this offense is not like Vrabel's, and they don't call him out for they don't call him out by name, but they wink it Vrabel was the issue with our offense. We have you have to look at Will Levis and the play calling tendencies that he was behind, the offensive line he was behind, and the wide receiving core he was dealt with. From that point of view, he did a great job with less. That's why I say in my prediction, we are going to go 12-5. 12-5, and Will Levis is going to take that leap offensively as a quarterback in this offense. Based on what I saw with him with an incompetent coaching staff and what he dealt with worse with an offensive line and also with his wide receiving core when he dealt with worse. I cannot see in a world where Will Levis does worse with better around him. I cannot see a scenario where he does worse with better around him. This is not basketball where you may have 5 superstars on one team, but less is more mentality where you have to have 1, 2, maybe 3 max superstars on your starting 5, and then you have to dish it out with the rest of your bench. This is not the NBA. This is the NFL where in this scenario where I'm having a brain fog right now. Something's up my nose. Yeah, you cannot convince me where less is more in the NFL. The only NFL player that could do that was Peyton Manning. There's no other quarterback that's done more with less. You look at Tom Brady, you look at Drew Brees, you look at Joe Montana, you look at Steve Young, you look at the Cowboys quarterbacks with Troy Aikman, Roger Staubach. What do all these quarterbacks have in common? They have a really good offensive line, and they have competent to really good receivers to throw to. Will Levis in 23 did not have a good O-line. He's going to have a better O-line in 24, guaranteed. He did not have a good receiving core in 23. He has a better receiving core, on paper at least, in 24. And you mean to tell me that Will Levis is going to struggle or do worse in 24 than he did in 23? That does not add up. That does not. That just doesn't add up. And so, with that being said, I will go ahead and close it out here with the show. And Axis Conference is around the corner for the Life Church. I just got back from a work trip up in Nashville, and our new venue up there for our new location at the church is actually a former AMC movie theater. It was actually dubbed back in, like, apparently they used to be a thing. Maybe it's still a thing now, but not to the best of my knowledge. This old venue used to be under the AMC Classics line of movie theaters, where you have these old movie theaters, but AMC owns them, and they would be under this AMC Classics line. They moved to a newer movie theater just up the street, and you can look up this movie theater online. It's called AMC Bellevue 8 Nashville. Look up those photos online of what this, like, and I'll try, and if I ever have another Life Church member co-hosting with me, I'm going to do before and after photos of what I saw and what these old photos are, just based on construction. And right now, they have a good auditorium, seat over 200 people, and I think we're going to outgrow that really quickly. And one of the areas next to our auditorium next door is actually a big, like, venue that you can have so much potential, that you have so much potential with. Down the middle, you can see there used to be a wall. And then up on the walls behind you, as you enter this big venue auditorium area, are like the windows to the projectors, and it's like that for a few rooms that are left unconstructed, like torn down from from the AMC that the previous church that we are merging that's merging with us didn't construct. This wall down the middle is torn off. And there's really, really exciting potential with what this possible new auditorium could be like, sitting upwards anywhere between 600 to 1,000 people. And that's going to be really, really, really exciting what they do. And I look forward to bringing that to you in the future. So with that being said, I'm going to go off and get some water. Thank you for watching this show. I'm going to check with my internet, whatnot lately. But until then, my name's Joshua Mickle, and until next time, everybody, keep kicking it to the king.